am a member leader with Community Voices Heard, as well as past president of the Resident Association of Polo Ground Towers. I am also a mother, a grandmother, and a great-grandmother. I would like to welcome you all to Polo Ground Towers, my home for over 30 years. Thanks to all of you who have come out today to support this important effort. And a special thanks to you, Senator Schumer, who has been a partner with Community Voices Heard in fighting for public housing and the people who live there. As a resident of public housing for more than 30 years, I have seen the deterioration of the service provided as well as the buildings. When I was first introduced to Polo Grounds in 1971, walking into this development, I was impressed with the cleanliness and the beautiful fencing. And when I walked into the building, I was amazed that I was able to see my reflection in the floors and how well it was kept. Today, we know that's not the case. Working staff has been reduced to one plumber and an assistant for a 30-story building. Imagine what happens if more than one emergency happens at the same time, needing that plumber. Someone's going to be in trouble. The floors are not clean as they should be due to lack of NYCHA staffing available. When I was president of the Resident Association, this is kind of hard for me, so I paused so that I could catch myself.
Take your time.
I had the opportunity to visit apartments that had repair needs that had not been done. I saw kitchens with plastic walls, slot sinks, and sometimes there wasn't even a stove at all in the kitchen. I remember opening a broom closet door of one resident. And when I looked up, the ceiling was covered with black mold. This was not only happening in one apartment complex, but in many apartments. We know that moles, mildew, rodents, roaches, and many other things that are even beyond what I've stated are coming from these buildings where our internal piping desperately needs to be completely overhauled and replaced. I mention these things because these are not responsibilities of the residents. These things are happening to us all because of disinvestment for decades to NYCHA, which has caused these conditions to continue, and it's still growing. I know that President Biden has currently proposed $40 billion for capital improvements in public housing nationally. But with all due respect, that money is not even enough to cover the capital needs just here in New York City. That is why Community Voices Heard and our allies here today, including Senator Schumer, are calling on the president to double that amount to at least $80 billion. That money would make a huge difference for myself and other families and working people, not only here in Polo Grounds, but across the city, who have suffered through those deplorable conditions. And we know that proper investment would help not only repair, but help to make public housing here in New York and across the country a healthy and sustainable place to live again. So we need at least $80 billion. I repeat, we need at least $80 billion as an investment, not just in our homes, but in the people and the family of this city who live in public housing. Thank you. And it is my pleasure now to introduce our partner in this fight, our fearless majority leader, Senator Charles Schumer.
Let's have a round of applause. First, let's take off our masks. Let's have a round of applause for Barbara Williams, who did a great job showing the whole thing. She laid it out. We don't even have to say anything else, but of course, being politicians, we will. Okay, I want to thank everyone for being here, my colleagues in government, someone who's been a great partner with me in this fight for money for public housing, one of the leaders in the House of Representatives, your Congress member, Adriano Espaillat. And our great borough president, who's always sticks up for people when they need help, Gail Brewer. We have 3 members of our clergy here from Manhattan, all great leaders. We have Reverend Dr. Thomas Johnson of the historic, famous Canaan Baptist Church of Christ. We have Reverend Michael Livingston, the senior minister of the great Riverside Church and a board member of CVH. There you are. And we have Reverend Henry Bellin, the senior pastor of the First AME Church, Bethel. Thank you, Reverend Bellin. And then we also have, last but not least, our great leader of the Polo Grounds Resident Council, Rhonda Bennett.
Yeah, Rhonda!
The best shoes in town. Just to show you I'm not all that crazy.
I like the socks.
Give Rhonda the mic.
Okay.
Hey, wait a minute.
There you go. There you go. All right. So I want to thank everybody for being here. Why are we here? We're at a crossroads for NYCHA and public housing across America. Decades ago, and Ms. Williams put it well, public housing was one of the finest places to live and the most affordable places to live in New York City. As she said, when she moved in 1971, when she was maybe 5 years old or so, it was beautiful. But unfortunately, at the city level, at the state level, and at the federal level, there has been tremendous disinvestment. And that has led to the deterioration in New York City of a whole city. Because we have about 600,000 people living in public housing in New York City. That's bigger than all but 5 or 6 cities in the United States of America. Why would you let a city deteriorate when people need a place to live? And it has. And it has. But now we are at a crossroads because we have an opportunity to do something about it. And here's what we say. It's time to fix the pipes.
Yes!
It's time to fix the roofs.
Yes!
It's time to fix the boilers.
Yes!
It's time to fix the elevators.
It's time to fix the elevators.
It's time to fix the leaks.
It's time to fix the leaks.
It's time to get rid of the mold.
It's time to get rid of the mold.
It's time to get rid of the rats.
It's time to get rid of the rats.
Especially the rats.
Especially the rats. and especially the big ones.
They got food, but you
Okay.
know, you can't eat
Okay. So, right now we have that moment of opportunity. That moment of opportunity, and we must not let it pass. President Biden, to his credit, has proposed $40 billion for public housing. That's much more than the federal government has proposed in the past. So it's a start, but it's not enough. And as Ms. Williams said, and as CBH has argued for, and as our leaders throughout the public housing community have called for, including Ms. Bennett here at Polo Grounds, we need to at least double that to $80 billion federally. And here's the good news. If we double it to $80 billion federally, New York City should get about half of that, and $40 billion is pretty close to what we need, a little tiny bit short, but not very, to make these places nice, wonderful places to live like they used to be. So that's what we're trying to do. That's why we say infrastructure. When you talk about an infrastructure bill, oh yeah, it means roads, and it means bridges, and it means highways, and it means tunnels, but it also means housing. Housing is part of our infrastructure, and an infrastructure bill must have ample, adequate funding for housing, and that's what we are all here to say. So, we are fighting hard to get this done. We have to revitalize and retrofit these buildings, and we're going to make them green as well. We're going to make the heating efficient, and that will save money and prevent carbon from being put up in the atmosphere. We're going to do it in the right way, and when we hire more people to redo this housing, we want it to be some of the local residents who get the jobs. Number 3. So I think I've said, even though Garrett Armwood, my great member and friend, has written beautiful notes, I have not read them all. Will you forgive me?
Forgiven.
Good. Have I said what I didn't miss any of you? Okay. So now we hear from our great Congressman Adriano Espaillat.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Now, Senator Schumer sent me a memo this morning about the dress code. He said you gotta wear khaki pants, comfortable shoes, funky socks, a zip-up, sweater, collar shirt, and a goose-down jacket. I'm from the Caribbean. Guess what I forgot? That goose-down jacket.
We don't sell those in the Dominican Republic.
Listen, I know the Polo Grounds well because I grew up the steps in Sugar Hill. I went to PS 28. Right up the street, right? Right up the steps. And so I know this housing complex well. And Ms. Williams, I remember when the floors were shining. I got a little bit of gray, I remember. And I know they're not shining now. And Rhonda, I know the kind of work that you have to do every day to answer the needs of the families in NYCHA. It's a tough job what they got these Lieutenant Tyrone and St. Nicholas Avenue. Tyrone has going like a nice tech center for the young people there, because infrastructure is also broadband.
Yes.
But for right here,
Yes.
right? And so we won the first battle, right? I think Senator Schumer said it very clearly, Gail. And Afia, I remember when we met with Afia back in a church over there by the Capitol building. It must be about 4 years ago, right? The battle then was change the narrative of infrastructure.
Right.
So that it's not just roads, bridges, and tunnels. That it includes public housing, because we, the federal government, are the landlords. So we won that battle, but we haven't won the war yet. Because now the war is the biggest battle is to ask for $80 billion plus. Plus is very important. Don't forget the plus. Reverend Canaan Baptist should be asking for $80 billion plus. That's what it's going to take to bring in new boilers. Now this is relatively close to the Harlem River, but there are places across the city when we have Superstorm Sandy, where the water came into the housing complex. Wrangle houses, right down the street, right? And the Wrangle houses is our sister complex, right? Where's Bernadette? She's not here? Okay. Well, there's places like Wrangle all over the city. And so we gotta have funding for boilers that are built Superstorm Sandy type of storms ready, right? They bring them up on stilts, right? And they make them resilient so they won't stop functioning. But you have elevator problems, and you have folks with love and the children. Nobody's more important in this fight than our children. And so the elevators gotta work. And I know that they break down and some people gotta walk 20 stories up and down, right?
Yep, 30.
You have problems with the roof and pointing the bricks, right? And when you have that, that's called the envelope of the building, right? And when you have problems with the envelope of the building, water seeps in to the apartments, and you have mold, and you have then chipping paint, some of which could be lead paint. You have leaky pipes, and you have a real mess in the apartment that contributes to the health of our families. So all of these things, right, gotta be fixed. And that's deep pocket issues. That's why we need what? 80 what?
$80 billion.
80 plus. 80 what?
80 plus.
80 plus. That's what we need. And so Senator Schumer has been leading the fight. And he has told me, as well as you, that this is a priority for him.
Yes, it is.
And it is a priority for me.
Yes.
Because we won the battle, but we haven't won the war yet. And so I know that we can do this working together. And I know that it is because of you that we change the narrative from just road, bridges, and tunnels to include public housing. We're going to win this fight, and we're going to win this war, and we're going to bring the $80+ billion to make it affordable and to make it humane for people. All we want is for people to live in a humane city. That's all. Is that asking for a lot?
No.
Is that asking for a lot?
No.
Is that asking for a lot?
No.
How much do we need?
$80 billion.
God bless you. Thank you.
Pipes. Fix the pipes.
Lovely.
Fix the pipes.
And we know that in St.
Without
Nicholas,
lift.
we had a Legionnaire's disease problem. In St.
Yes, we
Nicholas.
had a Legionnaire disease problem in our development in 2018. We need